Life for All presents Daily Food series, The Word of Life, the Fellowship of Life, and Living Stones for the Edification. The Epistles of John and Peter. Title of Book 4, Tested and Approved by God. Author Pedro. Week 1, Introduction to the Epistles of Peter. Monday, the calling of the Apostle Peter. Read with prayer. You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 5. After the Epistles of John, we come to the first message on the Epistles of Peter. The theme, Living Stones for the Edification, part of the general title of this series, comes from the Epistles of Peter. Today, the Lord is working in us to make us living stones useful for the edification of His house. In this message, we will discuss the conviction of our having been chosen and our predestination as children and heirs of God. However, as core stones, the Lord needs to work in us and mold us as He did with Peter. The many life experiences and ministry of this apostle encourage us to persevere, even under pressure, trials, and suffering. For it is in this way that we will be transformed into precious stones for the edification of the church. Before we begin the Epistle of Peter, we need to know who he was. During his ministry, the Lord Jesus called Simon the son of Jonah, and at the first meeting with him, changed his name to Cephas, Kepis, which means stone or rock. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated the Christ, and he brought him to Jesus. Now when Jesus looked at him, he said, "You are Simon, the son of Jonah. You shall be called Cephas," which is translated a stone. John chapter 1, verses 41 and 42. Jesus intended to make him a stone for the edification of the church. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. Matthew chapter 16, verse 18. When he received this name, Peter knew what his usefulness would be in the building of God's house. The fact impressed the apostle so much that he encourages us by stating that all Christians are building materials. However, we are not dead stones, but living stones that are built into a spiritual house. You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 5. This house is a living building, and we are living stones for its edification. God did not produce a dead organization, but made us members of a living organism. However, Peter also understood that in his natural man, he was still a core stone that needed to undergo a transformation process to be useful to God. He compares this process to refining gold. In other words, his fallen human nature should little by little give way to the divine nature. There are two ways to build the house of God: with gold, silver, and precious stones, or with wood, hay, and straw. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 12. Gold represents the nature of God. Silver was used by the people of Israel to redeem objects or people, and therefore expresses redemption through the work of Jesus Christ. Finally, precious stones were coarse stones that were transformed by extremely high temperatures and pressure. We all need to go through the transformation process carried out by the Spirit to become precious stones for divine edification. For example, to become a diamond, carbon needs to go through a long process of extremely high pressure and temperature. Gold is purified by fire at a high temperature. In the same way, olives will only produce oil if they are squeezed very well by a press. Therefore, we are all subject to situations of great heat and pressure that will extract from us the material God needs for his edification. For this reason, the Apostle Peter calls our attention to the following. Beloved, do not think it strange concerning the fiery trials which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened to you. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12. Every situation of pressure produces something useful for God, and through it, he redeems us into suitable materials for his edification. Peter had several experiences in this sense, because, as a coarse stone, he was impulsive and hasty. The scriptures show that his intention was good, but he often acted without consulting the Lord. Due to his impetuousness and explosive temperament, Peter can be compared to a wild horse. However, sometimes a wild horse is preferable to an inert nag, which never makes a mistake. God can tame, mold, and transform the former even through suffering and pressure. The wilder a person is, the greater the pressure and suffering they will need to be transformed, and the greater their usefulness will be in the hands of the Lord, as was Peter's case. The Lord Jesus knew that he would be suitable to lead the disciples, and because of his eager disposition, he could transform him from a coarse stone into a quite useful servant in the early church.